Hello, get a better camera angle. Good evening. I am here from London for this week's Sofa Chats. So I'm going to give it a couple of minutes and see who is joining us. And then I'm going to just launch straight in. And while I'm just waiting for a few people, if anybody's there and can chat, stick your name. Oh, Claire, you're here. Amazing. Thanks for letting me know. All is well. And that actually gives me hi. Oh, hi, Victoria. Amazing, amazing, amazing. So good to have you here. Oh, Denise, amazing to have you here as well. You guys know this already, but for anyone else who is watching in the background, a couple of little reminders. This is not therapy, it's not coaching, it's not a webinar. It is simply me reading passages from my book, Uncertainty is Your Superpower. And I go a little bit deeper into the topics. I open up the floor for anyone that wants to ask me a question. I'm happy to answer more, whether it's about my life or how I made any of the changes in my life that I'm experiencing the positive results of now. And also, it's an opportunity for anyone who wants to share their personal reflections, insights, and resonance with what I'm talking about. So that's the first thing. Second of all, if you are watching and you would like to comment, some people messaged me afterwards saying I wanted to comment, but I couldn't. You have to be subscribed to my YouTube channel. And if you're subscribed to the main channel, probably after about 5 minutes of subscribing, you'll be able to go into the chat box. So whatever feels good for you, then that's what to do. So without further ado, a few little updates for you. As you can see, I am in a different space. This sofa that I am chatting from tonight is in London. I have been here for just over a week and I've got almost a week left. And I had the best time, had some family come down to London and stay with me at my friend's flat for a few days. The kids were here. And as you can see, it's all about the love for Valentine's Day. That was my nieces, made my sister bring that balloon all the way from Glasgow so they could blow it up and give it to me for Valentine's Day. I mean, how special do you think that makes me feel? It's incredible. I have a very blessed life, challenged initially for sure, but a lot of amazing things in my life, and my nieces are certainly front and foremost. So we left off last week with me talking about school and just sort of not really fitting in at school, but just pushing on regardless. And we also left last week with a sort of reflections about not really needing to be fixed as such, but you can keep moving forward to rewrite your story. Yeah, I know, Denise, they are so cute, honestly. I am so lucky. We also spoke about, how like, especially when you're younger, you might have these goals, these dreams, these aspirations. I mean, you'll have them throughout your life, but we talk particularly when this early stages of the book, we're often reflecting on childhood. And in those early years, I had ideas of what I thought I might want to do with my life, but these things just weren't on the table for me or available when I was growing up. So things just didn't go the way that I might have thought. And probably not because they couldn't, but because I didn't know how to action, how I would achieve some of those goals. And I had different conflicting priorities that had to be taken care of. So for me, it was a different kind of life, especially when I was growing up. So this chapter, we're going to start chapter 2. Some of the titles, I picked at the time I was going through this and trying to make sense of what was happening at each phase. But I called this one, it's like the first big climb that I had from admin to the ego era. Oh, sometimes just gives me a shiver just thinking about it. So let's just begin. So, I didn't hate school, but I didn't love it either. Let's call it the holding phase, the time before my real life started. Something that I've actually learned though is how much easier it is to focus, to stay connected to things when you feel calm and at peace. Your nervous system is at ease. Back then, My nervous system was shot to bits. So maybe school would have felt different if home was different. I guess I'll never know. Anyway, I made it through school, a couple of hires, and eventually left at 17, going straight into my admin job. I thought maybe this was the life. It was a desk, a wage, weekends, and it was fine, a process, but it didn't fit. They never fitted, not even all the little climbs up the ladder or the sideways steps that I took over the years. They all left me feeling a bit, is this it? I knew I had more to give, but I didn't know how to access it. So, fast forward a few years, I was working in a small estate agents and an admin based role, but some customer or client people interaction, which was good. That being said, it wasn't too long before the itchy feet started to kick in. And then I was on the lookout again for something new, something fulfilling. And that's when a miracle happened. Someone took a chance on me. I'd been searching for opportunities and I knew what I wanted. I had a deep seated need to feel a sense of purpose. And I wanted a role where I could help people in some way. What an opportunity. A mortgage broker hired me, little me, with absolutely no experience, none. They clearly saw something in me, maybe my attitude, perhaps my hunger. Tenacity was my middle name back then. Still, it actually is. All I know is that that day was a turning point, and I felt like I'd been handed a key to a new world, and I was ready to unlock every bloody door. It certainly ticked all the boxes, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Sadly, it didn't last long. The company went bust. But that job lit a fire in my belly, and for the first time, I saw a direction. I didn't need a fancy degree or a CV. I just needed someone to say yes and bet on me, as I was betting on myself. From there, I landed a secure job in a big estate agent firm with a dedicated mortgage department, and I took my mortgage exams and I settled in quickly. Solid salary, tick. Company car, tick. Regular commission, tick. It looked like I'd made it, and in some ways I had. I bought my first flat, and it felt like a huge achievement. I'm a homeowner, independent, finally. However, that flat became something entirely different. After months of renovation, I eventually moved in, and it wasn't long before things took a dark turn. At first, it was fun. I'd go on nights out, have drinks with my friends, maybe go clubbing, total freedom. But it didn't stay light. It became a party flat, the go to after everything closed, the place you ended up when you weren't ready for the fun to stop. I didn't want it to stop, not really, because being alone meant facing myself, and I wasn't prepared to do that. So was happy to open my door to anyone who wanted to stay or visit. And on paper, everything looked great. In reality, things were starting to spiral out of control. The days of fun nights out at clubs, some wildness turned into carnage. It was a slippery slope of alcohol and substances. Meanwhile, in the workplace, I felt my 2 year boredom cycle kick in again. And I left my role at the estate agent, and not for a promotion or a fancy title, just for a change of environment. I wanted something different. So it was bye bye company car and hello BMW. I decided it was a good idea to buy my dream car with my then boyfriend. It felt like the next logical step, a statement of my identity, if you will. But my ego was writing checks that I just couldn't cash back then. And shocker, he and I didn't last long after that. And I ended up taking the car on myself. Things started to get tight financially. and I was making mistake after mistake in life, and I knew something needed to change. I decided to sell the flat. I moved back in with my mum. My life was spinning out of control, and I needed to stop the motion sickness. Next, I handed the car back. And then, like a universal gut punch, I got made redundant from the new job. Honestly, it was like a bomb going off in my head. And just like that, I had no home, no car, no job, and no self worth. Selling the flat was supposed to help me get back on track, but inside I was falling apart. I felt like an absolute failure. Everything I thought made me who I was, my flat, my job, fancy car, all gone. And to add insult to injury, I was still partying, still spending, and still numbing. That was the beginning of the absolute unraveling. Oh boy, I had no idea what was on its way for me, and it's probably just as well. I didn't recognise it as a breakdown at first. I just knew I was crying a lot more. I felt less like myself, and at the same time, like I was finally seeing parts of myself I'd buried. And there was an inner dialogue that never shuts off. Who am I? What am I doing? Why do I feel like this? And why can't I fix it? And I tried over and over again. I tried, but I didn't know how to climb out of a hole I was still digging. That year at my mum's was one of the hardest of my life, but it was also a strange turning point. Not a breakthrough, not yet, but a pause, a collapse of the life I knew, followed by a reset, a space where I realised something had to change. I knew I needed to make better decisions, not substance fueled, but sensible and intentional choices about my future. But the sad truth is that I was about to dive headfirst into the next chapter of trying, looping, and living a life that looked fine on the outside, but didn't feel right. Another round of surviving and not thriving. And that concludes a small chapter 2. But I want to share the reflection with you from chapter 2. The whisper: you don't need to hate who you were to become who you are. Every version of you did their best with the awareness that they had, and that's enough. That there really encompasses everything that I have learned on this journey of inner healing, transformation, joining the dots to the past, making the changes for my future. Because in those phases of low self-worth, which there'll be more of, talk about that in another chapter, those were the types of things that drove me into staying more stuck than I needed to be. And also that part there about doing your best with the awareness that you had, I wonder how many people can relate to that, that we could sit and say, you know, if I look back, I wish I hadn't done this, or, you know, judging ourselves harshly for it, for something that we might have said or done, or an opinion that we might have taken. So being able to do that, but with compassion, is so key, because in a moment, most of the time, the decision that we're making is what we believe to be true. So, to answer, Victoria, your question, looking back now, what simple advice would you give the young Debbie? What would I say to her? I would tell her that, well, a couple of things I think I would like to have told her. I'd like her to know that it's going to be okay, because there was many times that I didn't think I was going to make it out the other side with some kind of success in life, I thought I was always going to stay stuck in that rut. So I would tell that young version of me, look, if you keep going, no matter what way you turn, you are going to get out the other side. But I would like to have been able to say to her, find someone who is like a mentor, a guide, someone who can point you in the right direction, because that for me was one of the things that was missing. And I just didn't know how to navigate myself properly. And I think if I had had a me when I was then, a lot of the years of where I was going round in circles may not have happened. Who knows what would have happened? It's all guesswork, right? It's all in the past. But it's probably why I do what I do, because I can see the influence and the impact when you have someone who can help you understand your patterns, who can point out where, things that you can't see because mostly you're sitting in a blind spot. And that's where that don't judge a version of you from the past, because that version of you probably didn't know what the version of you now knows. So it's not helpful to reflect on that and judge that person. I hope that answers for you, Victoria. And if anyone else has any other reflections or anything they want to chip in from tonight from that particular part of the book, then please feel free. I actually took a couple of notes, and some of the stuff that was at the forefront of my mind was how when you don't get the chance to understand who you are, what it is you want, the opportunities are not there for you, and supported by the people around you, because you don't know what you don't know. You're a kid. So if those other parts are missing, what I recognize about myself was I dove into something in my life where I thought that was the right thing to do, rightly or wrongly, when I went into an admin job at 17, and all the rest of the things that unfolded. But what I've reflected on is, how do you even know yourself? You think you know. I thought I knew everything at 17, but that's because of the whole parentified thing we've spoke about before. When you become an adult as a child, then my ego was in the way. I just felt like I was the one that was the only one that could make the decisions. I don't know how much I would have listened, but I definitely know that if there was a younger version of me and I had somebody like me who could put their hand out and say, look, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I can open up doors for you in a way that unlocks insight that you can't see. Because I didn't know until many years later what the impact of all my childhood had been. I didn't know that. So it wasn't until years later when I looked back and I saw a lot of the chaos that had gone on, in my 20s and 30s. And I think, right, I'm not blaming it on childhood. It's not about blame. It's about realizing, right, so you're ambitious, Debbie, you're tenacious, you're outgoing, you're bubbly, you're all these different things. So why was it so difficult for you to find your direction? And there was no direction. And childhood disruption made a massive impact that I didn't know about, because no one pointed it out and no one put the right support tools in front of me. So it's not surprising the way I went in life. It's just, I would, to a younger version of me, I would want her to get some support in the right direction. And Claire, thanks for sharing that. I thought it's quite powerful. That's why I just did it as one chapter as a whole, because it was quite small. And actually, when I wrote it, I remember, like, when you're writing, you're not always thinking per chapter. You're writing and then things seem to take shape. And I remember when I created that chapter and I thought, that's short, but there's a reason it's short, because there's quite a lot in it. So yes, for pointing that out. Thanks. You've confirmed to me where my thinking was going about keeping it short. I'm so glad I have had you providing that insight for me while working with you. Claire, thank you so much. And, I know people think some people might just think, oh, you're just saying that because, you know, they've been clients or whatever. But I genuinely mean this. And I think anyone that I've worked with that's here tonight, and there's a few of you, you know that when I say things, it's with integrity and with true, genuine compassion, concern, and love. There's no there's no fakeness in there with me. That's why the kind of clients I work with are a specific kind of person. And yes, and honesty, whether that's comfortable sometimes or not. But I feel when you have some way of expressing to someone or helping them see things from different perspectives, not everyone can do that on their own. So being able to help people see through that, that's a huge part of the work that obviously I do. So thanks very much for sharing that, Claire. That's really kind of you. Um, I think the other thing as well when I was thinking about, you know, selling my flat and that sort of ego part. I don't know if anyone else can relate to that desire for external validation where probably there was so much missing inside for me. The self-worth piece, I didn't understand it, right? So when I talk about it now, sometimes it makes me think, God, how did I not realize? But you don't know what you don't know, because the life I was in was what I thought was normal. It wasn't until all the years later, it wasn't that it was not things that other people didn't experience. I'm sure they did too. But what I'm saying is, it's not just a standard way of upbringing with all the things that can go with that in a positive way. There's a lot of disruption. And when I look back and I think, you know, all of the things that were sort of taken away, safety, you know, so nervous system dysregulated, high alert all the time, anxious, and then when you lose your home and your security, and then you want to start building something for yourself, there's a desire, even if you don't know it, this unconsciousness within me that was looking for that external validation, earning the income, buying the nice things. And then over the years, that just got bigger and bigger to the BMW and the fancy mobiles. And then it went to all the holidays, and it was all them going to America all the time and doing all these bigger things that when I look back now, I can see where I was almost trying to justify what my life was through that external validation. And all the meanwhile, I was in a life that I didn't know that I didn't actually want. So I just wonder, you know, anybody else out there, I don't know where you're at, you're all on different journeys, how you've experienced that external validation. Have you considered the links that it might have to your own value and worth, and then how they can all be connected, and how we sometimes seek those external things because it's a way of us almost verifying, not to ourselves, but to the world, this is who we are and our level of success, and therefore this is what we are worth. And that's an easy one for us to fall into, and it's very common. So, you know, no shame here or anything or judgment. It's just certainly part of what the experience was. Denise certainly helped me with direction. What started a small goal turned out, yeah. I mean, when I talk about working with people, it's like I almost sort of say that people will come with the idea that this is the thing they want to work on, right? So it's like a thing at the top because it's the thing that's bothering the person the most. It's the thing that is keeping them stuck, or it's the thing that they think they really want. But actually, once you start peeling back those layers, you start to go down, down, and get deeper. And that's why when I talk about my model, release, reset, and rise, a lot of the time it's we're going back the way first, figuring out where did all this come from? Where does the meaning you have for life, where does this belief you have that this is the best you can have, when I've just met you once or twice and I can see instantly your potential is way up here and beyond. And for anyone, that has went through that journey of self-discovery and healing and personal development and growth, you might think that this is what you want, but when you do that underneath part and you really learn how to harness who you are, you will aim for up here because you start to recognize a seed within you has grown. And it's like, oh, I actually, I'm actually way more capable for more than I even thought. So, your horizons just start to get a lot bigger. Um, Victoria, I suppose I'm strange. I do things in achievements. I do things in achievement and keep it hidden. Well, that's an interesting one. So it's up to you if you want to expand a wee bit on it. Obviously, it's not therapy in here, so but you're more than welcome. Um, so when you say that you keep them hidden, like from specific people, is there an internal feeling of, well, what could that, I don't know, internal feeling be? So if you um, if we spin it the other way, talking about me, look, the things that I was doing was getting a BMW, and everybody knew about it because it was so off the wall for my friend group. Everyone was looking in, going, "Oh my God, she's made it! She's got this BMW." I wasn't hiding it. I needed the validation externally to validate my value and my worth. For yourself, where are these things displayed? You just don't share it with people. So the thing is, though, if you have these things, um, some people must know about it, or unless there's just certain types of people that you don't share it with for different reasons, there'll be some personal thing sitting underneath it. Perhaps, so for me, I'm feeling a slightly opposite emotion, and I'm just throwing things out here. So this is not exclusively to you because this is not therapy. But perhaps my feelings at the time were the external validation, and I wanted people to know because it massaged my ego and made me feel good about myself. For not If you're not sharing, I wonder if there's some other negative emotion under there about, well, embarrassment, fear of being judged, um, some other discomfort that you think people will respond to you in a certain way about your situation. I really don't know. It's, everything's very personal with people. But there usually is a reason why people, there's nothing wrong with not sharing. You don't have to tell everybody everything. But yes, your neighbours, but you don't share with family and colleagues. Well, there's definitely something there. So, thinking about perhaps maybe taking a few minutes to yourself. This is for anybody here, by the way, who is maybe looking at, do I aim for external validation? Do I internalize things? Do I feel like I need to get people's approval through my external? Maybe you could do a little bit of journaling there, some reflection, and actually just piece it together slowly in your own time. You don't have to do it all at once, but just writing down, who are these people that I think I feel certain emotions with when I think about sharing something with them, like part of my life or part of my achievements. What is it that is making me start to feel vulnerable, perhaps, or embarrassed? Or, do I think I'll feel judged? Whatever it is, if you go through that little story in your head about considering telling the people something, if you write that out, you'll start to get the emotions that come out with it as well. And you can consider reflecting on that because there'll be a connection between you and those people. So for me, it was a friend group, it was my peers, because as a person who was feeling like she was dying on the inside, I needed to feel valuable, important, worthy to my peer group. That was really the only people. Nobody else, it didn't matter. But to those that were in my friendship group, that was what was important to me. What you're explaining to me is less about that and more about family and perhaps work people. So there'll be something in there with that type of connection for you. So perhaps a little bit of writing it out to maybe process it might not be a bad thing. So yeah. Um, Anybody else get anything else that they want to ask or go through in any more depth or share anything that they might want to shoot the breeze over with some insight? We've come to about the half hour point, and I usually start to think about wrapping it up now because I'm conscious of everybody. It's a Tuesday night after all. And I don't know about anybody else, but it's been really cold. I don't know where you're all based, but any of the Londoners or in and around London, oh, it was really nippy cold today. I really started to feel it. Definitely got the heating on in my friend's flat tonight. Um, Next week, I'll be on to chapter 3. Let's have a wee look and see which one this is. Oh, yeah. Next week will be a good one. The breakdown when it all hit at once. That'll be an interesting one for anyone that wants to come on to that. And that's really when I'm just quite honest about totally falling apart. But at the end of the day, if you don't allow yourself to go to that place, face yourself, the vulnerabilities, the fear of not liking what you're looking at, the fear of what people might think and see, the persona that you've built up that's now fallen apart, then you will lead a life that's exactly the same, which will then only magnetize in the wrong things and repel what is right for you. But when you've gone the other way, you can sense what's right and you can shift out of your life what isn't right. So, with that in mind, I'm going to finish up for tonight, unless anyone else has got anything that they want to share. And anyone watching it and catch up, if you leave anything in the chat or in the comments on the video, I will always do my best to come back to you with some form of input, insight, or who knows, a support tool, a link to my YouTube channel somewhere. Yes, it'll be a good one, Denise, because you know yourself, it's like there comes a point when you go, that's enough, and I'm scared to see what I'm looking at. But you'll know yourself, and anyone that's worked with me, when you work with someone, you are not alone. That's the difference. I was alone. I worked it all, and then eventually did the therapy, and then eventually got the academia to help other people. But the predominant amount of time I was doing it, and it took 10 years for me or more to really come the other side of it because I didn't understand it. When you're working with somebody, obviously you can feel supported and held, and it does make a difference on that level of vulnerability, because even when you do fall down, because you will initially, you're not going to have to sit there and stay in that. You have someone always lifting you up, and I think that's really the key message from that tonight. So with that in mind, I'm going to head off and let you enjoy your Tuesday evening. Thanks for everyone that come on live, and it's so good to see you all. And for anyone joining me, I'll see you next week. See you later. Bye.